die Raakvat Rugby podcast met MW Welman en Simon Rieke.
It's MEGAFOON Sport, it's Raakvat Rugby, and you won't believe who I am speaking to today. It's Zach from Hakatime, and it's been coming a while now. And Zach, I'm so happy to welcome you on our channel, man.
Thank you, MW. And it has been coming a while. And no, it's good to finally be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. And, you know, life happens while you're busy making other plans. And that's exactly what happened to us. So we had a few things lined up and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
At last, here we are. I wanted to talk to you about the fact that South Africa, you know, we've had this rivalry with you guys in, 1921, something ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But we seem to have been flirting with the Irish a little bit, you know. Seeing then, as you hear stories that those are our real rivals now and the likes.
Yep.
But I mean, in our hearts of hearts, we know that's not true. How do you guys feel about South Africa as a rugby rival, or do you think we're not your rugby rivals anymore, your real rivals, or do you think that's still the main one?
Oh, it's still the main one without a doubt for New Zealand. But you do raise an interesting point. We were sort of touching on this, is that there's a lot of sort of modern day rivals that are really emerging, and mostly it's based on, you know, other teams actually stepping up to the mark. So my personal feeling around the South African-New Zealand rivalry, there's a lot of mutual respect. You see it in YouTube comments. You see it in discussions that I have with South Africans. And it's really built on those decades and decades, now centuries, of, you know, top-end performance. And through that is a real mutual respect, I think, is built between South Africans and New Zealanders. Now, in saying that, the rise of the Irish, the rise of the French, you know, how competitive those matches are now, there's a lot more spice, I've sort of noticed. So in the one hand, you know, between New Zealand and South Africans is that mutual respect. But on the other hand, there's just a bit more pepper and a bit more spice in these sort of recent rivals. So I think that's what's sort of coming across. And when I see, you know, and, you know, the likes of that game in the weekend against the Irish and South Africans, oh, mate, Loftus was just going off and the crowd's right into it and the traveling Irish, and it really adds to the spectacle. But I do think that, you know, in our heart of hearts, you know, the old foes will always be South Africa.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only thing that seems to be a bit of a new experience for us South Africans is like you just said now, the spice. The banter of the Irish seems to be a bit more, I don't know what the right word is there, but a bit more vicious almost. There seems to be a bit of needle almost, more than just friendly banter. You guys, we have a much more cordial relationship with. But we seem to be, you know, stoking the eye of the Irish, especially when we play zombie and change the words to say rassie. And I mean, whenever have you seen the entire crowd singing the coach's name, you know, something new? I'm sure the Irish are not used to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you know, so the English have always been renowned for just being a little bit, I use the word spicy, but confrontational. You know, they don't mind a bit of banter and really sort of ripping in. Whereas New Zealanders are a bit more cordial. To use your word. And the Irish, to be honest, the Irish, outside of this rugby context and what is sort of a recent thing, I've never known Irish people to be as spicy or as sort of involved. So maybe that's a new thing. I'm not too sure. But yeah, I certainly see the differences between the New Zealand-South Africa rivalry and the modern day rivalries. It's very clear.
I was wanting to ask you, why do you think we sort of flirted with the Irish now? Do you think the fact that we had to leave/left Super Rugby, that's a contentious point there, do you think that played a role, that we've been getting used to playing to the Irish? We're playing Leinster, we're playing Munster, we're playing all these teams that we never even knew they were before. I mean, I grew up with the Blues and the Crusaders and the Brumbies and the Waratahs and those teams. Those were the household names. Now we're getting used to the Irish, and now we're getting used to playing against them, and we're sort of forgetting about the New Zealand rugby. I mean, I must be honest, I can't remember when I last watched a Super Rugby game except for the finals and the semi-finals. Do you think that maybe played a role there?
I think so, and I think Super Rugby is a whole nother kettle of fish in terms of its marketability and viability. So I do think there's a lot of questions being asked now about whether or not it is a viable competition. So I guess to answer your question around, you know, sort of is the South African rivalry now with Ireland due to the proximity, due to, you know, facing those local teams? I would say so. But sort of underpinning that in the New Zealand experience is we're just not getting the same level of rugby. So I did a podcast with some rugby league guys, actually, some content creators. And what's been really interesting and emerging in New Zealand is, well, one, the decline of Super Rugby, one, the rise of rugby league. And that's becoming a real a real problem in some respects, and in other respects, I think there's enough space for everyone. But the Super Rugby final was moved, a semi-final, sorry, was moved because it clashed with the local rugby league team, the Auckland Warriors. So that's the first time that's ever happened, but it says a lot about the state of Super Rugby, and your sentiment of, not being too interested in Super Rugby is common. That's how a lot of people feel about it. I mean, I myself am finding it quite difficult to stay interested in it and, really keep across all the games where I used to. And it's just a case that I think Super Rugby brand has really diminished with South Africa not involved. It certainly has for us, because I miss those traveling tours of the Crusaders, going to, playing in Loftus and seeing people like Andrew Murdens flipping a bird or whatever it is. There was always sort of that real sort of sense of occasion with it. And we've lost that in Super Rugby now for sure.
Do you think New Zealand rugby is weaker for the fact that the South African teams are not playing there? I want to say in the same breath that I think our teams are much stronger for playing in Europe. Number one, we don't have those time zone travels. We don't have the problems with jet lag. We don't have to stay away from home for more than a month at a time. Little things like that. I think that might have contributed to South Africa winning 2 World Cups in a row. I definitely think a misstep, I think, on New Zealand rugby side, if I understand the situation correctly, what happened during COVID, where they sort of asked us to leave. Am I right about that? Or did something else play out there?
I think that was the case. As how I remember it. Was it a misstep on New Zealand rugby? I think now history is saying it probably was, both from a Super Rugby viability, but also, it almost becomes an echo chamber of a certain style of rugby that gets played in this, in our corner of the world, that we are missing that sort of more front heavy style that we used to get more with South Africa. And if I think back, we had a lot of successes, and New Zealand teams had a lot of success in Super Rugby with the South Africans there. But what's missing now is we don't get as much exposure to that style of rugby. So when we face an England who is very, very physical at the breakdown, it's just a little bit more of a contrast between how we're playing in the club levels versus how international rugby is played. And I think that's also one of the big failings of asking South Africa to step away from Super Rugby, is that we're not exposed to that style as much.
Yeah, the problem you've got is I think it's a double problem. The one is South Africa is no longer there, and at the same time, the Australian teams have grown weaker, exponentially weaker compared to. So you're effectively just playing against yourselves here. That's a big problem. No?
Huge problem. And as I say, it's become sort of a style echo chamber in that, they're trying to sort of replicate. And Australian rugby has always been quite expansive, as in, they like to throw the ball around and attack from deep. So does New Zealand. So that becomes sort of a style that gets cemented in our corner of the world. And, it's one thing that New Zealand teams are having success there, but when it's against, as you say, essentially yourself, when Australia is losing most games, the public is losing interest as well in Australia. It really suffers. The whole brand suffers. Everything suffers. So, I don't know what the answer is. They're fishing for answers now, as I understand it. So how to restructure Super Rugby to make it more appealing. Look, I don't think we can ever replicate, what Super 12 was back when it came on board. That was something special. And I think, if we continue to play this way, we're going to struggle in terms of results as well, eventually.
Well, at least you've got a New Zealand coach in Australia now. And I think the Australians are, Phil Waugh's there and Daniel Herbert and the likes. It looks like they want to, make things better. And I'm excited about Joe Schmidt specifically. I think he's going to make a big difference in Australian rugby around. It's going to be for the better of rugby worldwide. Yeah. I got somebody telling me the other day, I mustn't be so hard on the Aussies. I mustn't bash them so much.
Well, look, I can't help it either. I remember back in the days of 4 more years and, some of the tight tussles we had with the Wallabies. But now we do want them to do well. Good to see a Kiwi there. I think it's a step in the right direction. Yeah. But also, I think the issues are with our administrative in Australian rugby. I mean, so Dave Rennie was building something there. He was getting sort of mixed results, but you did get the sense that there was a bit more of a confident performance that was building, and with more time, they might have been actually able to do something. Then in steps the board. They get rid of him, bring in Eddie Jones for his hit and run at the Rugby World Cup. Absolute disaster. I'd say that also set Australian rugby back further. And now you've got a couple of their top stars that are looking at going to rugby league. So the damage has been done, but you can put that squarely at the foot of the board, the Australian Rugby Board. Step in the right direction there with Joe Schmidt. but he needs to be given the time and the space to be able to implement what he's trying to do. What he did with Ireland, essentially, to take them from 8th to 1st.
I think he's going to get the time and opportunity. I think the cooler heads are prevailing there. The thing I like about Joe is pragmatic. He takes what he's got. He doesn't wish for what he doesn't have. So what he has, he uses that. I mean, he lost Carter Gordon to league, like you just said, and stuff, but he still made a plan. Tom Leinach coming in and the like. So I'm excited about that.
Maak elke oomblik spesiaal in jou lewe. Word deel van die Koopkrag familie. Bederf jouself en jou geliefdes by enige van meer as 5000 winkels landwyd en ontvang elke feesseisoen geld terug in jou sak. Koopkrag, dis nie 'n kaart nie, dis 'n leefstyl.
I wanted to just talk to you about me quickly. I've got a pod with Harry Jones called the Lekker Rugby Pods in English as well. Harry is an ex-South African, and we talked about ranking the club teams worldwide. And we ended up ranking the Blues in second place.
Okay.
And because you guys played exceptionally good rugby, that's the one. When Harry started talking to me, I started watching those games, and it was breathtaking. And I was wondering if you agree with that, because we got Toulouse as number 1, Glasgow as number 3, having won the URC, and the Bulls at number 4, and Leinster at number 5. And the difficulty we had was the fact that you guys play so few games. The French play over 30 games. You only played 14. The Bulls played close to 20 and the like. So do you think that's a fair reflection of you guys' strength, or do you think we're overestimating or underestimating, for that matter, the strength of the Blues specifically?
Honestly, it's quite hard for me to say. I'm a lot less exposed to some of the European style of rugby. I am quite familiar with Toulouse and some of those teams that play over there. But in Toulouse, I think as a club, they've gone really well of late, and obviously, performance is right there. I think the Blues, their turnaround's been a couple of years coming, let's say. But what I was most impressed about the Blues this year is their style. They had a really good blend of, they could sort of, and it showed in the final itself, that they were really able to dismantle the Chiefs in the forwards. It was very much a forward dominant style of play. And then behind that, you've got, amazing attackers as well. So I just felt they had the right blend. One of my criticisms, and sort of going off topic a little bit here, was, I would have liked to have seen more of that style implemented in the All Black selection. I don't think we got that. But to answer the question, I think it's a fair position to have them as second, because I think, there's still a lot of great clubs down here. And even though they're sort of playing each other in smaller number of games, as you say, I think that ultimately, when you look at the performance, style, and what is sort of translated into winning rugby now today, I do think that they are a team that has the style right. So I'd put them up against almost any club team, and think they would do quite well.
Can you imagine the Blues and the Bulls at Loftus or Eden Park, wherever? It doesn't matter. The point, Auckland. The point is, I miss those days. The other day, Swayze the Brain and Victor Matfield and everybody was sort of reminiscing about the good old days. The Super Rugby. They miss it.
Yeah.
Like you just said, you bond on those overseas trips where you're away from home so long and the likes, and you don't have that anymore. Now we spend 8 or 10 hours in a layover in Qatar or Dubai or something stupid. It's not the same. So there are pros and cons.
It's not the same, Yeah, we didn't know what we had at the time. MW, that's the issue, We thought it would just go on forever, but unfortunately things change. And but what we would give to replay some of those games. I just remember the occasions, and getting wins over in South Africa was it's difficult to do. So, I remember getting up in the wee hours of the morning to watch some of those games, but you wouldn't even dream of doing that now for any kind of Super Rugby game, It's just, you wouldn't do it. So, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about last year's World Cup quickly. The one thing we know as South Africans, you never write off an All Black team. But I mean, after that loss at Twickenham, I really thought, geez, you guys are on the ropes here. And lo and behold, you ended up in the final, and you gave us a good run for our money. And apart from a few questionable decisions here or there, you might have won it for that matter. What did you think of you guys' performance in that World Cup?
Oh, overperformed for sure. I think, look, I sort of reflect back on the Ian Foster tenure, and everyone sort of looks back and thinks, okay, the early days, he was under some serious fire, for the lack of success. And the All Blacks, to our credit, sometimes to our detriment, we don't tolerate a lack of success. It is the All Black way. We expect to win. So he came under the microscope for sure, probably deserved. Now, it was a team, if we actually step back and look at the state of world rugby, styles, performances, investment, you'd have to say that the All Blacks need to accept that a number of teams are right there at the top and can win it on the day. If you look at it now, really there were 4 teams that could have won that Rugby World Cup, if we're honest with ourselves. That's the reality of rugby today. The All Blacks, I thought, were deservedly sort of 4th. I think they were 4th going into the World Cup. I thought that was deserved because we'd had mixed results going into the World Cup. Now, I saw enough signs there that they could put it together on the day, right? So a lot of Kiwis sort of had hope that, and justified hope, that with the right set of circumstances, with a good lead up, with a bit of focus, that we could produce the type of performance that we saw at the quarterfinals. And what a performance it was, So in some respects, I think we would, in many people's eyes, destined to go out at the quarterfinals, and we didn't. So you'd have to say we overperformed in terms of the World Cup. And to get all the way to the final and to be within a whisker, 1 point. And I mean, we'll probably remember the fantastic run of 1 point victories in the finals.
That's how we feel
for
about
South
it.
Africa. That's something else. But the game was there to be won. So all of those factors considered, all of the 4 years of trouble and trials and tribulations, sometimes that brings a team together. I think that's what we saw. And really, the turning point for the All Blacks was in 2022, under significant pressure in South Africa. If you remember the second test, there. Huge win. To me, that was the turning point where there was a lot of belief in the team, and when the team rallied behind their coach Ian Foster, because by all accounts, Mark Robinson was there to fire him. If you remember,
It was dead man walking. I remember.
Yeah, and it was the players that stepped in to stop it. So that galvanizes a team, and I think history will sort of remember that All Blacks team overperformed. Lots of people sort of remember the red card and blame either the refs or Sam Cane, but I remember that. I'll remember that as a team that overperformed.
Yeah, no, I think you put it exactly right. In South Africa, we didn't have lots of anything. So 1 point we decide is good enough to win. We'll take it any day.
100%.
Why should we win by 100 if we can win by 1?
Yeah,
spare the effort. No, I tell you what, for us, I must have aged 100 years in that final and the quarterfinal and the semi-final for that matter. It just took years of my life. But yeah, we are 4 times world champions. I have to say it, and I have to rub it in a little bit. I can see it on the jersey. Right?
You can do that. But look, we got some of the great games that I remember in World Cups in that World Cup. Yeah, I think it was a fantastic World Cup. Really, really good. The results sort of leading up into the quarterfinal, semi-final, final, amazing. And look, you guys were deserved winners. So the history remembers results.
Yeah. Even if we weren't deserved, we were the winners. The point is we won.
Yeah.
You might be lucky here or there with a card or a bounce or a kick that was missed or whatever the point might be. The case might be, the fact is that we won, and you never know. We're going in South Africa. The big thing now is a three-peat. You want a hat trick. You want to win 3 in a row. See if we can do that. And moving on from there, this is now time to start talking about the Rugby Championship. We're talking about before the second test. Number one, let's talk about South Africa. What did you think of South Africa's performance against the Irish last weekend at Loftus?
Oh, amazing performance. I think all of the talk has been right, that we're starting to see a bit of an evolution of the Springbok style. And the last 4 years have been very specific in terms of the way they like to play. Now we're seeing sort of more of the edge being exposed with Peter Steph du Toit with the big one-hander and wraparound pass, and but also the pace that he put on down the sort of wing. So what I saw was an ability to get around the rush defense, which is something that we as Kiwis are watching with eager intent, and then to see actually some of those, what I have always thought are underutilized forwards, being utilized to greater capacity. So we're actually seeing their athleticism put to use, I think. So hugely positive signs. Obviously, number of missed kicks from Andre Pollard, but look, class is something that sort of carries through. So I think there's no reason to get upset with that. But I thought an amazing performance, and I think you guys looked like the most cohesive of all of the teams that I watched over the weekend. As in, everyone kind of knows their roles and knows where to be. Obviously, it's a team that has spent a lot of time together over the years. So very, very positive signs. Some people have said scary. I think the Rugby Championship is going to be, mate, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. Yeah, huge.
I wanted to ask you, and it's interesting that you said we knew where we had to be. The feeling here is that we're not really completely familiar with the Tony Brown style of play yet. We weren't always where we should have been. First 3 phases, we were brilliant, and then afterwards we would fall away because we would not be exactly where we were supposed to be. We would have normally been 10 or 20 meters back. We had to be further ahead or further to the left or the right, and we're not quite there yet. Now, you guys know Tony Brown. That's a very All Black style of play as well. Do you guys not, sort of lick your lips, knowing we can handle this kind of a game plan from the Springboks? Are we not moving away from our traditional strengths too much? Do you think?
Well, I don't think. I actually saw a pretty well balanced. I saw a pretty well balanced performance. Actually, I saw an additional string to the bow being added, if we can put it that way. So, those strengths are there. I mean, the bomb squad performance when they came on at the end, amazing. But all of those, I saw all of the traditional strengths, maul, set piece, contact there, as well as that sort of addition of a bit more expansive. You're probably right. I mean, these things take time to bed in. So obviously there'll be improved performances over time. Do I think the Kiwis are licking their lips, or New Zealand's licking their lips thinking, yeah, we can take that style? Not specifically. I think if it's the way that Australia has traditionally implemented an expansive style, yes, we lick our lips at that. But I think Rassie has it right that you earn the right to play expansive. So you've very much bedded down a style over time. You're now adding to that style. I don't think you'll see too much of a departure from, South Africa DNA is my personal thoughts. And I think it's been implemented the right way.
Well, if we can call South Africa's new style of play an evolution, I think in New Zealand it's a bit of a revolution. By that I mean a new coach, lots of new players. You're not being allowed to choose select the players that are playing overseas. You don't have a Retallick, you don't have a Frizzell, Whitelock's out, Kane is out. Lots of players, Buanga had to start again. And then you had these new jerseys as well, which I'm not a fan of, I must be honest. Looks too much like a nun or something. I don't want to be offensive or anything, but it's too big.
I like the white collar. Personally, I like the white collar.
But it's just a little bit too big for me, too much,
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I like the white collar as well. But initially when I saw it, and I saw Damien McKenzie from the side, it looked very good. And when I actually saw it from the front, I thought, oh, no, wait a minute. But anyway, just my opinion. We can't say anything about teal, that we're wearing.
I was going to say, I was just going to bring that up.
Kettle black,
You're wearing your away top at home. You should never wear your away top at home.
I know. There was a lot of noise being made about that. Why are we not playing in green with our home team? But anyway, that's the way it is. You guys, what did you think of Scott Robinson's first game in charge for the All Blacks?
Nervous start, I thought. Look, a lot of the team and players that have been brought in, if we look at the forwards, for example, I don't see too much of a difference, if I'm honest with you. We lack a bit of experience in lock in particular, but outside of that, I see quite a similar style. Big, robust number 6. We've got, a number 7 who's mobile and active. I think the big evolution for the All Blacks over the last couple of years has actually been the front row. I think we've got a world-class scrum. And that's saying a lot, speaking to a South African, but I do think we either have or are building a real world-class scrum rotation as well with some of these younger guys coming in. Now, Scott Robertson-Razor is really focused on getting the ball wide, but exposing and beating the rush defense. Now, a lot has been made about our inability from that game to beat the rush defense. Actually, if you look at the 2 tries, both of them are, right around the rush defense. So there's enough there for me to suggest that the signs are positive. I think where we're really lacking, and people forget this, is that Damien McKenzie, while he is an experienced, I don't know what his number of caps are offhand, but he's played quite a bit for the All Blacks, but he's played in a very specific role of coming in off the bench and trying to win games. Now he's being asked to be a number 10 at the top end of rugby to manage games. I thought that was clunky, if I can use that word.
I agree.
As in, he hasn't got the right mix of game management with his sort of flair. TJ Perenara being there was a big addition. TJ Perenara being out, a big issue. I think Finlay Christie is going to struggle a little bit this weekend with game management. But coming back to the point, Pedro Feta, ability to beat the outside man, fantastic. I think he's a real prospect for the future. And I think they're going to keep persevering with the style of trying to get around the rush defense. And exposing it in different ways. So I'd like to see a bit more variety up the middle. Use some of those big ball carriers. We saw that Scott Barrett had success when he made a break straight up the middle off a short pass. I'd like to see more running in the middle to earn the right to go out wide. So trending in the right direction. I think we're going to be exposed with game management at international rugby level for a little bit of time. And I just hope Kiwis sort of persevere with this team, because I do think Damien McKenzie for the time being is the right person until Moanga comes back. And I think he needs experience in 10 in some of these big games, and he'll be the better for it. And he'll be able to develop more of an international style of rugby.
Part of my ignorance, but is Moanga going to be able to play in the championship, or is he also?
No. I'm sort of speaking longer term. So, I sort of look at it that it's probably 2 years. We'll see Moanga come back in time to build for the World Cup. But the championship will be on Damien McKenzie. It looks like he's been given the keys to the castle, and he should be. My point is that I don't think he's as experienced as people think. And if I'm honest with you, the combination of Finlay Christie and Damien McKenzie this weekend, that really worries me, because I think neither really are sort of suited to weather this England team, but also I think to compete with the top teams in the world right now.
In terms of England, I mean, the ancient props, one is now broken, cropped. The scrum was good, but not that good. And I mean, they're settling into this rush defense now under Felix Jones, who's also from South Africa, the Springboks, not from South Africa. What do you expect from them this weekend? I mean, they almost made it. If Marcus Smith had a better aim, and they could have won that game last weekend, let's be honest.
Yeah. And it's a team that's been building, right? So you can map their sort of trajectory back to Eddie Jones, his failures when they were at rock bottom. And, you've got semi-final in the Rugby World Cup. You've got defeating Ireland. You've got close loss to France. Now you've got a one-pointer in New Zealand. It's a team that's on the rise for sure. It's built on physicality in the middle and the breakdown. I think really their big failing, and we can look at sort of missed kicks. Both teams had missed kicks. But their real failing was inaccuracies at the breakdown. They gave away too many penalties there. And to me, that was the difference in the game. I actually think in a number of areas, they were far better than us, better game management, I thought. I thought they were more physical in the exchanges. And I thought the breakdown was a hot contest that they could have done better at. One tweak, a bit more accuracy at breakdown, and that's a different story. I expect them to be better, actually. And sort of how I preface the All Blacks sort of potential issues that I really see in the spine and 9-10 combination, their lack of experience. We could see England. Look, I haven't said this publicly, but I can see a situation where England wins this game very clearly.
It's
it wouldn't be a shock to me
away.
at all.
From 1 point away from a historic win. I mean, they only won twice now, if I'm not mistaken, in New Zealand. In the
Eden
past.
Park's a different kettle of fish, and I think a lot of people look at that first game. Okay, under Razor, first game, a little bit of rust. Everyone's expecting a better performance, and I heard an interview with Borthwick today actually, where some Kiwi guy went up to him and said, "Yeah, we won by 1 point, but this weekend we're going to win with style." So that's very much in the Kiwis' mentality: is we're going to win and we're going to win well, and we're expecting to win this weekend. My point is, I don't think all of the pieces of the puzzle are there to put on a good performance just yet.
No, but
we're used to winning. Yeah. So there's just a lot of talk about this being an expected win for the All Blacks. I don't see it that way, and it would not shock me to see England win this game.
Exactly what I said during our discussions this week. I actually said it last week. I said if ever New Zealand was not ready or primed to lose, but were vulnerable, that's the right word, was last week with all the new stuff. And like you said, Damien McKenzie not being exactly the right person right now, and most experienced and the likes, Razor coming in. Yeah, I agree with what you said just now. And I'm looking forward to seeing that game. But I can't wait for you guys to pitch up here on our shores, 2 games in a row against us in South Africa. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I can't wait. That's going to be the highlight. And look, the schedule this year for New Zealand's it's pretty full on. England at home, South Africa 2 games over there. We've got test matches against Ireland and France this year as well. It's a trial by fire for Razor. I can't wait for those 2 games in South Africa. They're some of my favorite tours, and I'm glad that they've started bringing back these mini tours. They're so good to see, where we actually get a little run of games, in town or in South Africa in this occurrence. So everyone's super excited, but we've got some improving to do to make those great games. And I think while I'm sort of saying that Damien McKenzie and Finlay Christie, I think they'll struggle a little bit.
One more thing, you just mentioned tours now. This new tours that we're going to be doing every 4 years, proper tours, like in the old days. You like that idea as well?
Oh, love it. Love it. And, I think back to a lot of the historical tours and it's just especially if you're there, it's just a real occasion, really exciting, and you get up for the games, and it's just so good. So I'm glad they're sort of bringing back some of that. It was just a bit too much travel and throwing teams wherever to get sort of games going. And we're actually seeing a bit more focus on, how things used to be in some respects. But more importantly, I'm a big fan of the tour format.
You know what? I just came up with a brainwave. You can use it. You don't have to pay me anything. You guys can change the words to rassie and zombie to razor.
Razor and zombie.
In your head. So there you go. I'll give it to you for free. It's a freebie.
Thank you.
I tell you what, now that actually got in the Irish's heads. I could see it. It's really.
They're going to remember that.
And a full Loftus now, singing it at full throat. That was quite a thing to experience. I tell you that now. I haven't seen that. South Africans typically don't like singing like the English do, but man, we gave it our all.
I'll tell you, watching Loftus, that game in Loftus, and I love the transition from day to night. The crowd's just into it. It's just, that's definitely on the bucket list for me. So I hope to get there one day and watch some of the big tests.
Well, I'm extending an invitation to you right now. I live literally 500 meters from Loftus.
Wow.
There you go. Let me know.
I might take you up on that.
Die Raakvat Rugby
I'm
Podcast
extending it officially.
met MW Welman en Simon Rieken.
Okay, Zach, that's about it for now. I appreciate it, man. We'll talk again soon, hopefully. Maybe before the championship or something. What do you think?
Sounds good. I think we can do that, MW. So yeah, book me in and let's do it. There's a lot of rugby to talk about, so looking forward to it. And thanks for having me on today.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you making the time. I know it's quite late there by you and everything else, and almost bedtime. So I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Thanks, man.